Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers, and I'd like to bring to you some of the strangest conversations in regards to some of the most classic and cult horror films out there. Tonight, I have a special guest who is one of our regulars here. Her name is Sarah Panozzo, and she's going to give us some of her amazing insights on tonight's film, which is John Carpenter's The Thing. Sarah, can you tell everyone a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you are this evening?
Hey, I'm Sarah. I really like scary movies, and The Thing is by far probably my favorite besides Halloween. Um, yeah, I'm here tonight. I am ready for the weekend.
Well, it's actually comforting to hear that two of your favorite films are John Carpenter films, and for those of you who may have never seen The Thing, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna spoil it for you because I'm hoping you have already seen it because our conversation tonight will be all about stuff that you will already have seen and hopefully enjoy. And if you haven't seen the movie, you're just going to be left behind. So, uh, without further ado, we're going to get started with John Carpenter's Thing. And I want to know, first of all, where you think or remember having seen the movie the very first time, Sarah. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can. It was one of those movies that I was shocked that I waited so long to watch. I did not watch it until 2020 during quarantine, which I also think was very fitting because you never know who has the thing. And it was a perfect time to binge horror movies, and it was a great time to fall into this one and just go down the deep dive with it. And we have now made it a yearly rewatching for Christmas.
Oh my God, that's actually a very interesting story. So, I've been some of these conversations I've been having. And one of the great things about having these conversations is that some of my guests are just now watching some of these classic horror films because of the quarantine and COVID-19. Whereas me, on the other hand, I originally saw these films when they originally came out. Uh, Makes me
Well,
sound
I don't think I would have seen it if I was a kid because my parents were really strict on horror movies. And my dad showed me some horror. So it was like Silence of the Lambs or like The Lost Boys, or we'd watch like Sven on weekends and see all the old school stuff. But then this kind of stuff, this was way out of their playing field. I remember showing it to my dad, I think last year around Christmas time, and he was like, "That's a great movie, but I'm never watching it again."
so. I mean, throwing this out of left field. Have you seen the original, The Thing from Another Planet, and or the prequel slash sequel, The Thing that they recently just made a few years back?
I haven't seen the original. It's been on my list. I know I need to go sailing a little bit to find a copy of that somewhere. But I also wanted to read the novel because I've read a few other things I think by this guy, and it's just a fascinating thing. I mean, going from 37 characters down to I think it was 12 in this one. But no, then the prequel I tried watching, and I was like, this CGI is atrocious. Like it was fun seeing how they got certain points from this movie and tried to shoo them into the movie, but I almost wish that they wouldn't, because then it's just more terrifying. You know nothing about what happened when this came out, and the less you know, the better, I guess. It makes it like that Lovecraftian terror where you don't know where this thing came from, you don't know what it's thinking or what it's doing, but it is terrifying.
hmm So I've never read the original novel the movie was based on, but I have read the novelization of John Carpenter's The Thing, which is there are several scenes that are very different. So if you are someone who likes to read novelizations or read books based on novels, I would suggest getting both the original, which I will read eventually because I have it, I just haven't gotten around to reading it, and reading the actual novelization of the thing, which is has some very interesting differences for those of you who are interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, doing research on this, there were so many really big things that they wanted to do, and they were already like a huge budget. So hearing the things that they couldn't do and all of like these big scenes and big explosions and like these big gory disaster things of one person turning and then like the creative ways they kill them, it makes me wonder like with their budget, if they had a bigger budget today, knowing what this movie is now, what more would they have done? Because they were looking to pinch pennies near the end. I mean, they recycled the set for the Norwegian set after it was destroyed and everything because they didn't have another set that was already destroyed. So they were like, let's just use this one. So I think if they had the bigger budget, it would definitely be, I would love to see a super director's cut. I know he just released like in the last 2 months, he was like, I'm not saying there's not going to be a second one nowadays, but I don't know what else he could do.
Well, getting off of the tangents before we even talk about the film,
Yeah.
there's the comic book that Dark Horse Comics did. That's a sequel. They actually did a couple sequels to it, which are actually quite amazing for those who want to delve more into John Carpenter's The Thing. Dark Horse got the rights to do sequels to it, and the sequels are actually quite interesting. You see, they actually tell you who is infected in the comic books between the two main characters who survive. But I'm not going to give that away because reading the comic books, part of that is the fun. But for a while there during the 90s, because I believe that's when the comic books came out, there was this resurgence for the thing, and that's when audiences started to realize just how great the movies really were. Because originally, if you didn't know, John Carpenter's The Thing didn't do well at the box office. It was not a hit. It was not well liked because critics thought it was very depressing. That's part of why it endures now, in my opinion. The ideal of this isolated group of people in the Arctic of all places who are slowly turned into or converted to this alien life form, and you never know who's an alien, who's human. That whole thing it's not the shiny happy people from E.T. or the shiny happy alien from E.T. or Starman, which is another John Carpenter film. This is completely the opposite of all that. People are killed in very grotesque ways and transformed in very grotesque ways, and it just didn't sit well with audiences when it came out.
Well, and it's funny you mention ET because I think that came out like right before this that year.
Yeah.
And they even said like people wanted to see the fun, family friendly. And then when they finally realized, oh, it's going to be like disgusting and horror-ish, they went like the alien route and started trying to say it was something like that. And it's like, Alien was so big for that time too. Like, how do you compare? And this is a completely different alien movie from that even.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how it's expanded its film cult personality because yeah, I mean it only made 19.6 million during its theatrical run and they had a budget of 15 million.
Yep.
So they did not make much on this at all.
Nope, it did not do any favors to anyone involved when it originally came out. Of course, time being as it is, it's now one of John Carpenter's most well-liked films next to Halloween. And personally, I know it's a sacrilegious, but I actually think it's better than Halloween. But that's just my opinion, and there's lots of audiences now out there who have grown to appreciate it. Hence, why they decided to make a prequel/sequel.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen very often that these films that do horrible at the box office get a sequel decades later. But tell me, Sarah, what is some of the things that caught you? You have just watched it like a few years back. This is actually quite interesting to me. So, what are some of the things that caught your attention in this movie?
So I have always been a super huge nerd for special effects and practical effects. Like I loved the original Star Wars because you had the puppets
Mhm.
and all of like what's his name's like puppet gallery.
Jim Henson.
And yeah, Jim Henson's puppet gallery. And I just love how much stuff you can do with it. And they did a lot of puppeteering for this. The CGI still holds up pretty well. I mean, it's CGI, but it doesn't look off like some of them would today. Um, and just, I mean, 10% of the budget for this film went towards the special effects creation of the monsters. And just looking at them, like, you don't even have to watch the full movie. You can just watch a super cut of all the monsters and it will make your stomach turn. But they are done so well. And like sitting here, like the first time I completely freaked out. I was like, this is amazing. They've got like the little hoses popping out and they do like the reverse puppeteering where they've got like tentacles coming out and just all the weird, disgusting stuff. And then finding out how they did it is just unbelievable. I mean, you've got like the stomach chomping scene and where they brought in a paraplegic guy and they just put like fake meat arms on him. And it's like, who comes up with this stuff? Like, who comes up with a giant stomach that's going to rip somebody's arms off or a giant head that's going to split and then toss somebody around in the air by their head?
I think there was a question considering that makeup artist Rob Bottin did the makeup special effects for this film, as he did for Joe Dante's The Howling,
Mm-hmm.
which Bottin did a lot of great films in the '80s, and this is probably one of his biggest showcases next to
Yeah,
Howling.
this was one of his first too. He was only 21 at the time when he was making this, which is unbelievable for somebody that young to pull something like this off at that age. So
Yeah.
it's super impressive. Like I said, it still holds up to today. I mean, like I was reading stuff like for the stomach scene, they even had the hair pattern down correctly for the guy's chest. And I was like, how do you like I get how you can do that, but how do you do that?
I would love to have been a fly on the wall in the makeup conversation or the
Oh
special
my gosh.
conversation between John Carpenter and Rob Bottin and them say, so how can we destroy humans even more?
Lots of KY jelly from what I've seen.
We just need to have him do I forget what it is. It's not CPR, it's the
Yeah,
defibrillator.
yeah.
We just need to have the defibrillator scene in there, and it's going to eat his arms off. His hands are going to get eaten off, and we just want to see the stumps, and it looks like they've been gnawed by teeth, and blood goes everywhere. And I'm like, that would be cool. Can you do it though?
Yeah. I mean, like going from I think the last one of the ones we talked about was Friday the 13th with those practical effects versus this, like that's like real blood, real people getting stabbed, and this is like real-esque monsters. And the way that they lit them so that you never saw anything completely is really impressive because you'd see like the dog scene.
Yeah.
You'd see bits and pieces of it to know roughly what it looks like, or they might silhouette it or whatever, lighting it from the back. So you never got the whole picture. I mean, even the final monster you don't see in full at all. So it's really interesting. And then like there's just the stuff you don't know about, like the burned bodies in the snow or people disappearing. And it's the movie is insane in such a good way.
And I like to comment that some of this the film looks as good as it does because it takes place in the isolated and wintry atmosphere of Antarctica, which is also something that doesn't get done enough in horror films. Rarely
No.
do we see films that take place in the winter season, and rarely do we see them as effectively done as this one. So.
Yeah, I mean like winter and isolation-esque. I mean, I think the closest thing we might really get is like The Witch, where you've got the family on the edge of the woods at the fall where they're gonna starve to death. But I mean, that's a whole nother movie. But no, I mean, I thought it was really interesting that a lot of it for this, they wanted to shoot widescreen just for that reason, to show how isolated it was. And you've got that like lurking around every corner. Like you don't get the scare chords and stuff like that where you think you know who's watching what and who's the monster. You're just sitting there in silence sometimes waiting for something to happen, or there's the like heartbeat chords that they play, which is really interesting. And it actually drove me nuts. I was trying to figure out where I had heard it recently. And fun fact about the composer, but he got a Razzie for this movie. And the music that they did not use for it ended up going to a little movie called The Hateful Eight, where he won an Oscar. So I thought that was hilarious because I was like, I wouldn't have nominated this for a Razzie. I get at that time it didn't do well, but altogether, it's a really effective movie, especially for like the thrill and horror people wanted in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, I believe Ennio Morricone did the score, which is very odd because John Carpenter usually used to do a score for all of his own movies. And I cannot remember why he didn't do it for this one offhand.
Yeah, I can't remember offhand. I think it was one of those things where he was just like, I don't know what to do. But then he took Morricone's music and kind of synthesized it.
Yeah, he did something to it. I can't remember the story now.
But I know that this movie was such a big influence on other directors to the point that Quentin Tarantino actually ended up hiring him to do almost all of his music because he loved The Thing so much.
Yeah,
so it's interesting how it expands.
So I'm gonna say so one of the other reasons why this is one of my favorites of Carpenter's films is that it also is one of his great collaborations with Kurt Russell.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know what? Between this one and Big Trouble in Little China and even the Elvis movie that they did together, I can't fault the movie at all because they're just a great pairing of talent.
They really are. And I know he tried really hard. He was like, I don't want to use Kurt Russell again. But Kurt Russell just had everything he needed. And they talked through a bunch of stuff to kind of figure out plots and characters and stuff like that. So he was already working with him on the movie. And then like kind of came in and was like, well, how about I be this person? And I think he was like one of the last people hired because they tried to prolong it so much to find somebody else who could fit.
Oh my God. Cause I'm trying to think now. It's very rare when John Carpenter keeps bringing back the same people as often as he did for Kurt Russell.
Yeah, I mean, like actor wise, he doesn't, but like behind the scenes, it's like all of his regulars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but yes, this is one of those films where with Kurt Russell, I would almost say he's playing against most of his characters because the thing is, I know him from when he was doing all the comedies with Disney and everything else, and segueing into I still see him as a comedy actor. Because he did Big Trouble in Little China. How can you not laugh your ass off at what he does in that movie? But The Thing was such an odd film because it was so dark and so different from his other films, and I mean, and it still holds up. And I kind of think The Thing is something. It's one of those films that propelled him into doing other types of roles that you would later see, such as Breakdown. And I'm trying to think of the movie that he was in the plane with. God,
Overboard.
No, that was funny. No,
that was a funny one.
The film with the martial artist who dies within 15 minutes of the film, and he's stuck on the plane. Oh my God, I can't remember. Saved my life. But he started doing Tombstone. He started doing all these films, not so much comedies as they were serious dramas and even darker films. I mean, I'll
even say that it didn't even. I mean, even like Escape from New York. I mean, it kind of opened the door into all of the like darker action stuff.
Yeah. Oh, and he did. Of course, they bring back the comedy. I guess they had a lot more fun doing Escape from LA together.
Yeah. But yeah, with actors in this movie, I mean, you got so many that like I watched this and I was like, you've got like Keith David and a bunch of other people. I can't remember his name. Grumley?
Oh, I think it's Walter Grimley.
Walter Grimley, thank you. But like I watched it and I was like, these guys are like huge names nowadays. Like this was like one of their first films. And everybody there is like their own character. And it's like, just enough to like the characters, but not enough to like be super depressed about everybody dying.
Yeah, Wilford Brimley. I knew I was saying something wrong when I said it out loud. Wilford Brimley.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he's passed away. He played in a lot of stuff, including Cocoon, which is where I liked him from too. But yeah, Keith David, him and Keith David, or he being John Carpenter and Keith David would then, of course, do my other favorite Carpenter film with
Yes.
They Live. Because
Yes.
if anyone who knows me knows that I usually go around wearing this They Live sweater. I have a couple They Live t-shirts. They Live is one of my I guess, guilty pleasures. I think it's a brilliant movie, but that's just me. There's a lot of people who don't think it's a brilliant movie. I think it's also one of the most fun movies to watch of John Carpenter's oeuvre. So the Thing, I think, is unparalleled, an excellent film by all stretch of the means. I think the music's brilliant. I think the cinematography is excellent. The performances were great, and the story was great. Direction. They Live, I think, is a great story, but just one of his most fun movies. Uh, I can say that I love it and think it's a great movie overall, but most people will look at me and say, "What the hell are you talking about? It stars a wrestler." And
I mean, most of the Disney stuff stars a wrestler nowadays too. So we can't really complain about that anymore.
Oh my God, you're so correct. Oh my God, you are so correct.
But
Dwayne
no,
Johnson. Oh
I
God.
mean, They Live is also like another one that like you said, kind of like spawned from this is like you've got that lurking something in the back of the universe that decides to try and take over. And I'd be interested to see how they remake it at some point because watching it, I was like, this fight scene is a little excessive. I get they're like fighting, but why is it lasting 10 minutes? But
It's
he's
great.
got great concepts for everything that he does. I mean, even like he didn't want to make it at first because he was afraid he was going to ruin the original movie and the source material, and they were like, well, have you ever read the book? And he was like, no. So he sat and read the book, and that's when his mind like changed, and he was like, this is like Agatha Christie. I mean, I can make this into a giant murder mystery of all this stuff. So his concepts are so unique, especially for the time. And then seeing how they've spawned so many other like riffs on the same kind of thing is very interesting.
You know what? You bring up a great point. I didn't think about it. The ideal for the way the plot unfolds is very much like an Agatha Christie story.
It's like And Then There Were None, and really that's how it plays out. You don't know who the murderer is the whole
No,
time, and you're left at the end with wondering, did they make the right decision?
that is a great parallel. I did not know. I did not even think about that at all. Probably because I didn't read Agatha Christie till much later in life.
Oh, see, I read it like in middle school, and that was one of my favorite books.
So the thing is, yeah, I didn't read those until much later in life. And whereas I saw The Thing when around the original time it came out, you saw it like 2-3 years ago. So yes, our reference points are different. So that's
Yes.
actually a great, just an ideal to bring up. I never thought of that at all. Okay. See, that's one of the reasons why we have to do these conversations, because
Oh, yeah.
our backgrounds are so different, and our interpretations and our reactions to these films are so vast and different. I am not an old guy. I just like to watch the films when they originally came out. You are a young person who is just now experiencing these older films for the first time. So the thing is, I love the allow audiences from different generations to see these films and also get different reactions and different interpretations of them, because for me that's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, like you can definitely appreciate some of these older movies. I mean, you get like the more original content and stuff like that. You don't get Freddy 1 through 7, and then there's like Jason X and all this other stuff where it's like, well, where did you happen to see your first movie? Because it could have been any of these like 30 in a series of different things. And then you've got stuff when it was originally made, which like I'm jealous because like knowing, I mean, some things going into like The Exorcist and stuff like that, where you're like, okay, you're going to have this scene and this scene and this scene, but you don't get that whole everything is just by word of mouth and everything's a secret until you go and see the movie. Now you've got like the commercials ruining things left and right. So like I don't think like today this movie could have been made as well as it was because they would have ruined all of the creatures in the commercials before it even came out. And then it would be like, what's the point of seeing it in a theater?
Ah,
But
good point that you pull out. And I wonder if that was the same reaction most people had when they saw the prequel slash sequel, The Thing. If they showed, I know they showed a lot of the creature in the trailer, but me being a huge fan of the franchise,
yeah.
I went to go see it anyways when it first came out. So
Yeah, I mean, like I think I got up to like between half of the kills. I didn't quite finish it, but like it seemed like a decent movie. The CGI just wasn't great, especially compared to the original. I mean, there wasn't really that many like practicals. It was all CGI,
pretty
and
much.
that it kind of ruins it. It's like I think we watched this with Event Horizon like right before or right after, and I was like, the Thing is so much better. It's so much more realistic. Whereas you get Event Horizon where you've got so much really bad CGI.
That's interesting. But um, getting on to John Carpenter thing and seeing we've now gone into the place where we have different reactions to these movies, to this movie in particular. What are some of the things that stand out with you other than the special effects? I know I've said Kurt Russell's has stood out, and he's one of the reasons why it has endured with me for over 30 years. God, it makes me sound old. But you have a reference of only 3 years, and I know you didn't grow up watching Kurt Russell movies. Much
No.
you didn't get the I don't think you were able to appreciate the time in which John Carpenter made a lot of these movies originally himself, because he stopped directing, I forget when, but he got
Yeah.
disillusioned after his experience with The Ward, and he hasn't really done anything other than music since then. So I can see my background of how I came to enjoy these movies, but your background is completely different. Is John Carpenter like? When you watched this film in particular, did you watch it because it was a John Carpenter film, or did you watch it just because you read about it as just the thing, or what brought you to this movie?
So it was kind of a mixture of things. One, I absolutely adore Kurt Russell. I love almost anything he's in. I will watch it, and I don't even like it could be the really bad like comedy movies and I'll be like, "Cool, it's Kurt Russell. I love it." I mean, I grew up watching him doing the Western stuff. So like I didn't really know about the comedies. It was all him as the older big mustache and the Stetsons and stuff like that. So it was like, okay, this is an entirely different side. This is a super young Kurt Russell. It is a semi-action movie, but I love my spooky horror movies. I love sci-fi, and I love the practical effects. I don't think I watched it because it was John Carpenter, but because of this one, I definitely went and finished his trilogy of the Apocalypse.
Mm.
Because I was so impressed with this because like Halloween is one type of movie and it's definitely horror. But then outside of this, like the way that everything was brought together, it just works so well.
Mm.
And so I had to see the rest of them. And then like I loved In the Mouth of Madness. Absolutely. Sam Neill is just phenomenal. So like I said earlier, I think he has these amazing ideas and I am always here for it. Like at this point, whatever John Carpenter would come and put out, I would totally go and watch without seeing any commercials.
Well, he did do that semi non-fiction series that just came out. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I haven't heard great things. I know it was on my list of things to watch, but I know I mean, it's TV. You don't get full creative control for that kind of stuff. You're limited by whatever you put it out on.
Pretty much.
So,
It was by the way, the Kurt Russell film, I had to look it up. Sorry. I had to look it up to find it's called Executive Decision. Steven Seagal dies like the first 15 minutes of the movie. And I saw I had to go look it up because I saw it at the theater and was expecting this to be this great big fight sequence between, like Kurt Russell and Steven Seagal and all that. And everyone knows fucking Steven Seagal dies within 15 minutes of the movie. I was like, what the hell? And so, but I got Kurt Russell throughout the rest of the movie, and he was doing his suspense thrillers thing, which he's so damn good at. And I love the movie. But I had to go there because if I didn't look it up, I would be wondering what the was that movie with Kurt Russell on the plane with Steven Seagal, and I couldn't remember it because unfortunately, I think a lot of as much as I like Kurt Russell, I think a lot of his films get overlooked or forgotten easily. They are huge hits when they come out. Executive Decision was a huge hit when it came out. But then they don't they're not like new generations don't appreciate them as much.
yes.
I say Breakdown. Breakdown was an amazing film and it did a huge box office when it came out, surprised everyone. No one remembers it. Unlawful Entry, which is another one of my favorites with Ray Liotta. God bless his soul. Was also a great movie. Did well. No one remembers that. People remember his John Carpenter films because they did so many films together. And then, of course, the occasion, Tombstone still gets remembered, but it doesn't get remembered for Kurt Russell as much as it does for Val Kilmer's amazing performance. But I don't think Kurt Russell is given enough credit. I think we talked or we had an episode before on Bone Tomahawk, another great movie, and you mentioned The Hateful Eight. The Hateful Eight, these are great Kurt Russell films because he's such a great actor in every one of his projects. It doesn't matter what genre it is. It doesn't matter who he's working with. He does a great job. Even his Santa Claus.
I was gonna say his Santa Claus movies are phenomenal.
I was about to say, yeah. I watched those last Christmas, and I was like, oh damn, he does a good Santa Claus as well as Elvis. Shit, is there nothing Kurt Russell can do?
Well, he can play a good guy and a good bad guy. I mean, you kind of got that in The Hateful Eight. You didn't know who was really the good guy and the bad guy. Same with this. You kind of go back and forth. And then you've got him in the Marvel universe as the evil dad. And it's like,
oh yeah,
not Kurt Russell. Sorry, my husband's over there making fun of me because I love Kurt Russell.
He's probably saying, darn you! Probably tell him he has nothing to worry about. Kurt Russell's an old guy now, okay? He was still
and then we're watching what's the new Monarch show with him and his son. And even there, it's totally him being an action hero all over again.
Oh,
and
really?
It's great. Yeah, they do some really nice faded clips where it goes from Kurt to Wyatt to show the time difference because he plays himself. And it's so well done.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll check that out. I haven't checked it out yet. I haven't checked it out yet. I have to wait for the whole series to come out before I binge watch it. and then maybe we'll do a spin-off of our conversations of horror and we'll tackle television horror. I think that would be a lot longer series because that just seems like it'd be very long.
Yeah.
We couldn't handle
you get other 10 movies together.
Well, I wouldn't even know how to do a show about a television show. It would be something where you get a whole bunch of people yapping about the X-Files, which season, 1, 2, 3, or 9, which is,
Oh, you'd have to limit it.
Oh my God. So, That being said, we've talked more about Kurt Russell than we have the actual movie, The Thing. But that's what this is all about. We talk about whatever comes our way. We're discussing these movies. It just so happens that with this John Carpenter film, we've been discussing mostly Kurt Russell. Uh, so if Kurt Russell is watching this show, just I just want you to know you have some amazing fans out there who still appreciate all the sacrifices you have done in your career, and we will continue to watch them from generation to generation because there's a huge gap between me and Panozzo in terms of our watching and our film loving ages. I watch these movies when they come out. She watches them when 30 years later when she's in the pandemic mode. So there you go. That seems to be a good stopping point for this episode. But I would like you, Panozzo, to let me know, is there anything you want people to know about in regards to John Carpenter's The Thing?
Ugh. I mean, it's like I've said earlier, it's phenomenal for effects. If you do not like blood and gore and you do not like dogs dying, then definitely don't watch this movie because you've got some gruesome dog stuff going on as well as some gruesome human stuff going on. And there's a lot of gross stuff. A lot of it was food based, apparently, which makes it a little bit funnier. But they had so much KY jelly. And the only other thing you can remember about this movie is its wonderful tagline, "Man is the warmest place to hide."
All right, so I'm gonna say a few things about The Thing. The Thing, like I said before, everyone, The Thing was one of my favorite films growing up, and I've seen it more times than I can possibly imagine. It's usually on my watch list at least once every couple of years. So I was really happy to be able to rewatch it again when we did before prepping for this show. I hadn't seen it in a couple of years. I have not been able to get my wife to watch it because she doesn't watch these type of horror films, but she likes Kurt Russell. I still try. That being said, John Carpenter created an amazing film, and it's one of my favorite films that he's ever did. If not my favorite. I know you are out there saying it should be Halloween. Yeah, Halloween I've seen a billion times too, but John Carpenter's The Thing is the film I believe that he had his style, his aesthetics. He has his right people in his corner, and he's working with his most talented of actors to create a film unlike any other film. And no one's really been able to capture that magic like he did in that one. People have tried. They have tried their damnedest to create an isolated horror movie with a monster, and it never seems to work. It never. Every other year, every few years, someone always trying to the copy off what he did with The Thing, and it never works. Whether it be an isolated film like this one, where all of them are male characters except for the voice of Adrian Barbeau and
Yes.
Russell's little machine that he cheats at.
The chess master.
Chess master that he cheats at. Which is always funny to me because I love my side note. I love Adrienne Barbeau. I got to meet her once. She was amazing to talk to because she was so down to earth, and I had her sign my book that she wrote. She's had some amazing insights on everything that she ever worked with John Carpenter. So my little tidbit: if you've never met or read her book, go out there and read it. She is just as charming and amazing in person as she is in her book. That being said, that's my take on The Thing. It's one of my favorite films of all time. I hope you watch it again if you haven't seen it in a very long time. And if you've never watched it, I hope we have talked enough about Kurt Russell to make you go out and watch it.
Maybe your wife will watch it now.
Maybe she'll watch it. She'll watch it if you say it's worth watching, Panozzo. But the problem is it has 100%. The dog scene. She won't get past the dog scene. So
I get it. It's a lot.
All right. Thank you for joining me on Conversations of Horror. And thank you, Panozzo, for joining me for this conversation. I can't wait till we delve into another horror film soon. And everyone out there, please make sure to check out some of our previous episodes and tag and do all that kind of crazy social media stuff that you all do out there that I'm not really privy to right now, so that we can keep conversations in horror going with more amazing films and more amazing guests and more amazing conversations about Kurt Russell. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and I will see you on the next episode. Have a good evening. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, produced by Kevin L. Powers, executive produced by Kelly A. Inoka, and originally filmed via Zoom technology. Conversations in Horror is hosted by Kevin L. Powers and co-hosted by various horror film lovers and filmmakers. To learn more about Mr. Powers, please make sure to check out his Patreon page and other social media platforms. Conversations in Horror is copyright 2024 Broken Lighthouse Pictures production.